It happened 6 months after they started living together. Maya was cleaning out a closet when she found an old folder hidden in the back. At first, it looked like ordinary paperwork. Then, she saw the credit card statements. A card she'd never known existed. More surprisingly, on the card was $11,000 in debt. Her boyfriend had been making the minimum payments for over a year, silently carrying the burden without ever telling her a word. To be fair, he hadn't betrayed her with someone else. He hadn't even told a direct lie. He just simply kept a huge part of his reality to himself. And if you think this is a rare story, it isn't. It's happening in more relationships than you'd expect. We grow up believing that love is about honesty. So we tell our partners everything. Or at least, we think we do. We talk about our first heartbreak, the mistakes we regret, the family we hope to build someday, even the names we've picked out for children who don't exist yet. But then, if someone asks a simple question, how much do you make? Or, do you have debt? Or maybe, the hardest question of all, what does money actually mean to you? That's when suddenly, honesty doesn't feel so easy anymore. Conversations stall. People change the subject. Some laugh because they're uncomfortable. Others stay silent because they don't know where to begin. Because beneath every discussion about money lies something much deeper. Fear of judgment. Fear of not being enough. Fear of losing control. Or fear of losing the person sitting across from you. That's why this isn't really a conversation about money. It might be the single most emotionally loaded conversation two people will ever have to face sooner or later, which almost none of us are ever taught how to have it in the first place. So how common is this really? In a nationwide 2026 study, nearly half of all couples said they intentionally avoid conversations about money. Not because they don't care, but because they're afraid those conversations will end in conflict. Even more striking, fewer than a third regularly talk about everyday spending or the financial future they're supposedly building together. At first glance, that seems contradictory. If money is one of the biggest forces shaping a relationship, why do so many people avoid talking about it? The answer is simple and uncomfortable. Because money is never just about money. It carries our fears, our values, trust, our ambitions, and our sense of safety. The more important the topic becomes, the more emotionally dangerous it feels. And that's the paradox at the center of this story. The conversations we avoid the longest are often the ones that shape our relationships the most. So why do smart, loving, otherwise honest people suddenly go quiet the moment money enters the conversation? Because money was never just money. Long before you understood what a paycheck was or how a credit card worked, you were already learning what money meant. Maybe it meant security. Maybe it meant stress. Maybe it meant arguments behind closed doors. By the time you're an adult, money isn't simply something you earn or spend. It's a language you've been speaking your entire life, often without knowing its rules. And that language is deeply tied to identity. A conversation about debt, a missed payment, impulsive spending, or the fact that you're behind where you thought you'd be by now, make it rarely feels like a conversation about numbers. Now, it becomes more personal. As if your bank account is somehow measuring your success, your responsibility, your whole future. That's why financial conversations can feel so emotionally exposing. Then there's the story we've been told about love itself. Movies teach us that romance should be effortless, that love should be spontaneous, emotional, and somehow untouched by practical concerns. Budgets, savings, retirement plans, those belong in boardrooms, not candlelit dinners. So when someone brings up finances, it can feel less like protecting the relationship and more like breaking the spell. As if talking about money somehow makes love less romantic. And finally, there's a reason silence is so tempting. In the short term, avoiding the conversation feels like the safest option. If you don't bring up all the financial problems, nothing bad happens today. There's no argument, no awkwardness, no disappointment. You get to borrow a little more peace from tomorrow. But like every unpaid bill, that silence keeps collecting interest. Weeks become months. months become years. And by the time the conversation finally happens, well, that would be an emotional outburst, mostly negative, about everything that silence was allowed to grow into. Silence has a strange way of changing a relationship. It doesn't stay still. It always accumulates. Every question about money that goes unasked leaves something behind. A quiet resentment, an assumption that never gets corrected, a small crack in trust that grows wider over time. Not because someone was unfaithful, but because two people slowly stop understanding each other's inner world. Then, one day, a hidden credit card, a mountain of debt, or simply two completely different definitions of what being financially responsible means. In that moment, the argument isn't really about money anymore. It's about trust, about the painful realization that the person I thought I knew has been carrying a story I never got to hear. And that's why the conversations we avoid to protect our relationships often become the very conversations that hurt them the most. So how do you have this conversation without it turning into a fight? Well, it all starts with changing the question. Most couples think they need to have a budget talk, but that immediately puts the focus on numbers. And numbers have a way of making people feel judged. Instead, start with stories. Ask questions like, what did money feel like in your house growing up? Or, what's a money fear you've never said out loud? Or even, if money weren't a problem, what kind of life would you want us to build? Honestly, we can see that those conversations reveal something far more valuable than a bank balance. They reveal the beliefs and emotions behind it. But there's one more important thing besides that. Don't make it a once-a-year emergency meeting. A single, high-stakes conversation about finances can feel overwhelming. But a simple 15-minute check-in every month? That's just part of taking care of the relationship. The healthiest couples aren't the ones who never disagree about money. They're the ones who talk about it so regularly that it never has the chance to become a crisis. And finally, don't wait for any perfect moment, or for your partner to bring it up first. If you're watching this, let that person be you. Sometimes the strongest way to start is with a simple sentence. Hey, could we set aside a little time to talk about money this week? Not because anything's wrong, but because I'd like to make sure we stay on the same page before anything ever is. Maya and Jordan didn't have one of those picture-perfect conversations after Maya found the folder. There were no movie moments, no dramatic embrace that magically made everything okay. Just a long, uncomfortable silence. Jordan was ashamed that he'd carried the secret for so long. Maya was heartbroken to realize the man she loved had been struggling alone, all while she believed there was nothing they couldn't share. It wasn't an easy conversation, but looking back, it was the conversation that changed everything. 6 months later, they still have a standing money date on the second Sunday of every month. Nothing elaborate, just a cup of coffee, a simple spreadsheet, and 20 minutes to check in with each other. Jordan still gets a little tense whenever the old debt comes up. Maya still has to remind herself that his silence was never about not trusting her. But now, they both know. The messy parts, the uncomfortable truths, the fears they'd rather not admit out loud. That somehow, if once they started carrying those things together, they didn't feel nearly as heavy anymore. Because sometimes, what weighs a relationship down isn't the problem itself. It's having to carry it alone for far too long. In the end, here's my actual ask. Tonight, pick one question from this video, just one, and ask your partner, what did money feel like growing up in your house? Or, what's one money fear you've never said out loud? That's it. That's the whole conversation you've been avoiding. You don't need a spreadsheet. You don't need a plan. Well, you just need to go first. Because, so often, we don't need lengthy plans or eloquent speeches. Just one moment of mutual understanding can make the flow of life smoother and more enjoyable. That's one of the most wonderful things life can offer you. So try to seize it, okay? And finally, please support by liking and subscribing to the channel. See you in the next one.